Tabletop will start after the following messages. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletop. I'm your host, Nick, and today we are talking about maps. Get out your pencils, get out your sextants, get out your compasses. We are making some maps. And who's making maps with me today?
It's your best friend, the cartographer, Daniel.
It's me, Franco, and I say compass, not compass.
Map pun, shade.
Excellent.
I'm a map.
And I am a map.
And I'm Dora.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about overworld, underworld, and battle maps. Why don't we start with battle maps, as they are probably the thing that are in most games that are around like a table or on a online thing like Roll20 or something. So everyone usually uses a battle map unless you're doing exclusive theater of the mind.
Unless sometimes you mix and match. I don't know.
Yeah,
I do both.
Yeah, I can kind of do both. So why don't we talk about what makes a good battle map? It's very common to use them, but what is the crux of them? What makes them a good thing to use as a tool as a GM?
Well, Webster's defines a battle map.
Just get out of here.
As
Get out of here, cartographer.
a grid-based paper that people find.
Battle map good. Nice to use battle map. I like a battle map sometimes, unless I don't.
Well, what makes a good battle map versus a bad battle map?
I'll dive in here.
I'm getting fucking nothing from these guys.
I guess I'm not sure what you're trying to ask.
All right. So
But Shade has an idea.
a bad battle map is going to be one that does not actually provide any
The BBM.
sensical information.
Hey, remember, pretend that this bookshelf is actually a statue.
Correct. Stuff like that. Yeah. Stuff. So like that's a great point there. If you bring in,
Thank you. I'm very smart.
You want to have a battle map that is showing a derailed train and things like that, and you bring in a fucking map that is
Perfectly nice
absolutely
train.
blank. Okay, cool. Draw some shit on there so that I know where that train is in reference. Otherwise, it's just theater of the mind. Or you bring in something that has, it has a track, but there is no train on it, or it's a fucking map of a library. I mean, like, obviously those are bad. The battle map really should be showing what is happening, and it should be clearly legible for the group. It should also be something that isn't distracting or revealing things that you don't want revealed. So if there is a mimic hidden somewhere on this battle map, the mimic can't obviously just fucking be, oh, it's that thing that shouldn't be here.
Yeah, never ask your players, hey, pretend you don't see this.
Yeah.
That's a bad battle map.
I have, now that we're sort of getting into this, I've kind of...
Well, fuck me.
Now that I understand what's going on, I have kind of moved away from using strict battle maps, because you can get battle maps online. A lot of very kind people provide them online for free. You can find just pictures of shit or whatever. You can buy battle maps. I bought a big book of battle maps one time, and
I love that book.
It's really cool. It's a great map. You have to be like, yeah, this is definitely going to happen, right? Is it? I don't know. I like, sometimes you need a generic map. And my favorite thing to do, at least in person, now I don't use any of those maps anymore. I don't use any battle maps. I use a battle grid if we need to. I use a battle grid, and then I'll use like Jenga blocks or other like little cube blocks or whatever, and I'll make those into terrain. So I'll be like, okay, here's like a column, and I just stack up some blocks, or this is a wall or whatever. And actually, I don't do that at all. I tell my players, make a 20 by 30 room, and I'm going to prepare all the monsters. And that's how you offload work.
For me, what makes a good battle map to me is variants of play. So
Mm-hmm.
it has maybe different elevations, the terrain, like you were mentioning.
totally.
It has something that allows the fight to feel more dynamic and not like staring across a grid and firing spells at each other or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There are certain things I think that, like, in my experience doing grid based games like Monster of the Week and other games that are more narrative focused, I will use a battle map as, and you know this, Franco, as like just a general, like, this is generally the picture right now.
Yeah.
And it's more to like clarify for theater of the mind rather than like
Yes.
actually piloting things around.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that sort of like, I have my mini out and I'm moving them, kind of battle gaming it, it's very, what I want out of a battle map is variance of play in that, like, oh, okay, I see that there's a glowing thing in the middle here. I'm going to go check out what that is, even though it's not optimal. Or like, oh, I see that there's like high ground over there. I'm going to try to get up there so that I can fire down or something.
Yeah. I think like when you're using like a flat map, it just doesn't feel as good now that I've been using like the little blocks or whatever.
I like a battle map for planned encounters and boss fights. Other than that, I like theater of the mind. Make it quick and simple.
Yes, for sure.
Less steps.
Well, this is a thing that I actually kind of want to talk to you a little bit about, at least in person. Though this also kind of happens in virtual tabletops where you're like talking and someone's like, yeah, I walk into this room, and then you're like, oh, let me get the battle map or let me get the map out. And everyone's like, why are you
Something's
doing
going to
that?
happen.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, what do you guys do in that case? Because it's either like you always have a map or you kind of tip your hand.
In that instance, don't bring the map out until the battle's happening.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I would suggest. If someone walks into a room and you know that this is where a fight could or definitely will happen, go ahead and describe the room. You know what it looks like. You know what's in there. And then once shit comes, breaks down and you say, and now we're going to roll for initiative. That's when you bring the map out.
And you're like, everyone move your drinks. I'm putting the map down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because like what you were saying, Nick, what's really great about a battle map is things on the map that are interactable. Yeah. That's the best thing about anything in D&D, like interacting with things fictionally in the environment and like impacting them, And I think like doing that theater of the mind, describing the room, that's fine. And then when you get the battle map out, you leave that lever there, you leave the door there, make sure that all that stuff is actually there in that room. And you can indicate it with like a little, icon or something like that so that they know it's like important or whatever. I just think like sometimes maps can really hog tie you.
Yeah.
To like, they can like really like pin you down. Like Daniel was saying, like really reserving them for like things that you think of as like boss encounters, but if you don't play the type of game that is like boss encountered, like oriented, just being like rooms where important shit could happen, or like traditionally important rooms, like a king's chamber or a church or something like one of those maps that I had is like a cathedral or something. It's like, this is a great map for almost anything. Yeah. Like this could be a ruined cathedral as well. There's like a lot of different sort of generic types of maps that you can use.
Yeah. And I was knocking just a blank grid earlier. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's
why you use wooden blocks.
Yeah.
Well, on like Roll20 or something, like you'd go to that white page, like I don't have a map plan for this, but here's where your characters kind of are, and then you kind of have to play like, man, this is theater of the mind, but also here's just something where you can keep track of all the moving parts.
There is an element to that is handy. I mean, one of the most reliable before the pandemic, whenever I only did in-person games, really, for the most part, having that roll up polyurethane thing is great, because being able to just quickly mark down a couple of things. This is the room you're in. There's this other room, antechamber here, things like that. That's a lot of fun, and it gives you a little bit of something solid to work with. I do think that for in my experience, when you're in an in-person game, having a map, more important to me. Theater of the mind, for some reason, I don't know, like it works, but I think that people enjoy that element of interacting with something and that tactile feel right in front of them.
That is a great point, because I was thinking about when you brought the Ico map that you had made out.
Which one?
The one that you built.
Oh, the physical terrain. Yeah.
And everyone was like, like so excited, and there was like parts that would like come undone to show like inside the tower.
Yeah,
and immediately everyone was like, okay, I'm just using like measuring tape for my movement and everything. And that was like very cool, very interesting. And I feel like if their maps are like a really good way, especially like detailed battle maps with like height and terrain and all that kind of stuff, immediately makes people go from like, okay, I guess I'll move here and I cast, to like, oh, I want to get on top of that, and like, and like their imaginations go crazy.
They're hide in that wagon.
Because you get to really strategize there in a way that, as much as I love Theater of the Mind, you don't necessarily get to do as much.
Yeah, you kind of skip strategy in Theater of the Mind. Like, okay, I'm this close. I want to try to do something like this. Like, that sounds cool. Well, that's
Can I do that without hitting everyone? Yeah, sure.
True. Yeah. I don't know. Like, terrain is really cool, and I would love to play in terrain more. But it's definitely like the type of thing where you're like, this has to happen, otherwise this is for nothing.
Yeah, I 100%. And also one problem that I will say as far as battle maps and terrain goes, hope you have a fucking place to store that.
Here's a little hack that I know, at least our local Pandemonium is our local game store. They have huge terrain sets, mostly for wargaming, downstairs that you can like rent the table essentially for like $10 for like 2 hours or something. And you could have like a table where you're just doing normal stuff, and then you're like, all right, you guys like approach the castle. Why don't we go over to this table? And then it's just like the massive, professionally made terrain that they have for war games.
That's sick.
And you finish the night out on like this epic map.
Is badass. I do love that. But that map that I made for Ico, it sits in my house in a back room. And it was a solid single piece. I can't do anything with it. And every time I think about throwing it out, Jackie is like, we shouldn't throw it out. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. We really shouldn't. But also, what the fuck am I going to do with this thing?
Donate it to a local school.
A third bedroom house.
Like throwing out.
And then you make your trophy room.
Give it to Liz to use with the kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what I should do. But like, there's also that little part of my head that I'm like,
I made this.
But I might use it again, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's this hoarder element to my mind. So I'm like, any parting with it.
Anything that's like, I don't know, like a modular terrain map would be very cool as well. Like,
I mean, they have those things that are like dungeon tiles and stuff that you snap together. And
those are really cool.
They're badass and expensive.
They're expensive.
What I've always wanted to do is like just get like a bunch of baking sheets, and then go like Michael's or something and get those like little terrain things. Just like sort of make like
magnets,
evergreen terrain. Okay, we're fighting outdoors. I have my outdoor tray. There's some trees. And like this is the fight this is what we use when we're fighting outside. Yeah,
you stack them a little bit and get the. I gotta tell you. Have you guys played with natural wooden blocks? Have I played?
I'm dying for you to tell us about it. Yeah,
I've mentioned it before, right? But I don't think any of you have actually played in it. My players say that it feels very good. Like it feels like this feels right.
Are they inch by inch?
Yeah, good. So it's like the Jenga blocks are slightly. I think they're like almost like kind of 3 squares, but the cubes are exactly fits right on the brick grid. And it's really good. You can get really, really intense with it. Or sometimes, I mean, I just tell them usually like to just like mark out like a little ring with the blocks or whatever.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'm like, there's an altar here, build it up. Or here's a ziggurat, or here's an arch, like a doorway, and you just like stack them up, and then you put another one on top, and then it's
magnetized.
No, it's just you just stack them.
There's also like
I feel like those would knock over so quickly.
Well, you just don't knock them over.
Just don't do that.
Just don't knock them over.
There's also things you can do. Like there are these like
I might punch my hand through your tower.
I mean that might. Yeah.
There are these like wargaming bases that you can get for like Warhammer and stuff, and some of them come with this sort of like slot that you can throw cardstock in. And I feel like you like can always make that as a quick, easy terrain thing. Is like grab some cereal boxes, cut them in half. Those are buildings or whatever on the other side. And then you use all of these little like things that you put little stands in and be like, this is a cart, this is a car, this is a whatever. And you can do it that way too. I had someone on, Nish from Niche Crafts, who's a great YouTube channel. You should check it out. Friend of the pod. But he was talking about how like the more like little bits of effort when it comes to the terrain of it all when you're making your map it just elevates the experience for people like crazy amounts. Like they immediately are like, this is incredible. Like this is a professional game. So yeah.
But in defense of 2D maps, I will say there's so many great programs out there, so many great ways to make a 2D map, and you can still convey a lot of information. Like, you know, I'm a fan of just writing the information directly on the map. So if it's a wall and I want you to know how tall that wall is, I might just, you know, put in parentheses somewhere on the map 10 feet tall, something like that. Or just have a quick reference sheet for us to, in case when someone inevitably asks, how tall is that wall again? It's this tall and this thick and this long. You know, all that stuff.
Gross.
Come on.
This is a great kind of segue, I think, into virtual tabletop maps and everything.
Yeah.
So, like, physical maps, I think that are great. They're not always needed, but I think that they do elevate the experience if you're sitting around in, like, a combat situation, because everyone's, like, gets a little bit more like, ooh, it's tactile. It's something that I can engage with more of my senses. But when you're looking at a virtual tabletop, it's always going to be a 2D, and it's always going to be sort of like...
That's actually, there are 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like Foundry, or not Foundry, Tailspire, and whatever it is, D&D, Wizards, WotC.
Yeah.
Never heard of them.
Yeah.
The thing about virtual tabletops for me is I absolutely hate making maps in virtual tabletops. It takes for me like a lot of work.
I can't figure out the software every time I log in.
I don't
What do you
like
mean,
it.
like drawing ones?
Like I can draw and scan one up or whatever. That's fine. It's just like making everything feel good to use, like making all the squares exactly like 5 feet or whatever scale that you're trying to do, and making sure that everything, the information that you want shine through, but also be able to hide other information. There's just like a lot of like software skills you need.
I already know how to do all that, so I can't relate.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm on your side here, Frank. But I will say something about it, and maybe it's because now our in-person games are, you know, more like, okay, we're doing something special, because a lot of times our group will play remote. I feel like I have to put so much time and energy that I don't have into making the VTT maps that I resent them. And I often will just go, nope, we're just doing Theater of the Mind, because I didn't have the time. Once upon a time, though, like if I go through my old Roll20, because I'm a basic
Oh yeah,
person.
I have like pages and pages of those maps that I threw on there for Argot.
Yep,
for sure.
And I really fucking loved it, and I used to just, that used to be my playtime was, you know, I'm going to now build some maps on Roll20 and through Incarnate. Thank you. And that was just a lot of fun for me, and figuring out how people actually interact with it. I actually just opened up one of my old maps. It's an overworld map, but still, and immediately went, what the hell was I doing here? And remembered, oh yeah, that's where I left off in that game 2 years ago. So that's a fun thing, a little reminder for me. And that's a lot of fun. And then they also, because they're VTT, I don't have to worry about storing them anywhere.
Yeah. For me, like, I guess virtual tabletopping is just like not my preferred way of like experiencing a TTRPG. But also I always just feel like whenever I am looking at a virtual tabletop and it's someone else's turn, I'm always just like dragging the arrows around or drawing or whatever.
There's a lot of
I've noticed that about you.
Yeah, it's a lot with you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fidgeting. It's just like me being like, how far away is this? Me planning my turn, me just drawing a weird, funny joke.
I gotta tell you, definitely plan your turn on other people's turn.
Yeah.
It's a PSA from me to you, everybody. Please plan your turn while other people are taking their turns.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm doing, right? It's just like doing all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I know this is like a tangent, but I was once playing with a game with someone who would like, we were on Zoom back in the early pandemic, and he would like be playing MLB 2000 baseball on the PlayStation.
Oh my God.
On other people's, and he's like, "Oh, okay, what did I miss?" Like, stop playing video games.
Yeah, you missed a home run.
Yeah,
asshole.
But I guess I just like have a hard time interfacing with it the same way as something that's in front of me.
Yeah.
So whenever I use them, I usually use the virtual tabletop to like display images and stuff like that of like trying to set an atmosphere.
You approach a castle, you have a picture of a castle.
Exactly. So that it's like a little bit easier, and then I keep it more theater of the mind just because like you, Daniel, I just have a hard time interfacing with that thing and getting it the way I want it rather than just drawing quickly on a piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm going through like a self-teaching art school moment. I'm in my art teacher era. As the kids will say.
Sure.
And I would really like to
saying that. So weird.
And as they floss.
My art teacher era.
My art teacher era. And I like to make my own battle maps. So it's like, this is going to be like 20 hours of work.
Yeah.
And I have 4 in a week before the next session. So probably not going to be like a big thing that I've
never drawn a battle. I've drawn other types of maps, which are definitely, I think, easier to draw than a battle map. Battle maps seem very hard to draw or to create. Yeah.
Well, this seems like a pretty good segue. So after the break, why don't we talk about overworld maps? See you right after this.
All right, guys. What do we want to talk about for the commercial?
Maybe the hot dog is a sandwich kind of a thing?
No, that's stupid, man. Everyone knows a hot dog is not a sandwich.
All right. What do you want to do then?
Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about. UFOs.
So my toilet Mike Tyson was telling me the other day that you can survive a zombie apocalypse in a PetSmart.
Dude, are you okay?
Yeah, what was that?
I'm sorry. I don't even know what's happening right now. I've been listening to our podcast a lot recently, and it's a ton. What's going on?
All right, I'm just going to make this easy. Hey, y'all, we are the hosts of Master and Debaters, the podcast that debates all of life's silly questions. Join us every week as we present our hardest opinions on the softest topics. I'm Puck, and football is the worst sport.
I'm Alex, and a hot dog is absolutely a sandwich.
I'm Spencer, and the Beatles suck.
This is Master and Debaters. Find us wherever you get podcasts, and as always, stay mad.
Welcome back, everyone, to our episode on maps. We're going to talk about the overworld now and the dungeons that are under them. So let's talk about overworld maps. I think everyone here actually has a good time with overworld maps in all of the campaigns I've done with you guys. My personal favorite thing to do, and this is mostly for Monster of the Week or other like modern day stuff where you have like a real world that you're like a Earth essentially. My favorite hack is just to go to Google Maps, do the My Maps function where you can go to like specific locations and zoom far in and then remove all of the titles of like houses or places, and then you can like screenshot it essentially and then start putting your own icons in for like what they are. And those have been all of my Powered by the Apocalypse maps is essentially just that. It's been a blast. I like it a lot.
I love that. Well, I think my last big world building map project was our last Gilded Canaries game. Mm-hmm. I just used color hexes on like a virtual tabletop. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is this area, this is that area. And it was like, I put some tokens down to like kind of show what was in there. But it was like, it was very sort of an abstract approximation of the overworld map. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it really helped the players like, oh, I'm here, I've been there, and kind of like build the world in their minds too.
Yeah. Side question. Hexes or squares?
Overworld, I like hexes because you can. It's just easier to go in any direction.
Overworld, I don't use any of that shit.
Well, you use Google Maps. You can't get a hex grid on Google Maps.
Overworld, I don't use anything. I use scale.
Yeah.
Depends. It depends sometimes. I have done both hexes and just scale.
But
never squares.
I just think like
A verse.
What?
Goes both ways. It's versatile.
I guess Pride Month is over.
Jesus. Welcome to July, guys. Ugh.
Oh God, sorry.
So I was just thinking though that like, do you guys use Overworld as like a way for people to traverse token wise, or is it just a representation of like a?
Wait, I want to talk about Overworld maps right now for a second and introduce you to how I use them.
Okay,
you and Danny got to do it. Did Shade do it?
No.
I want to tell you all that I love Overworld maps. I am a fantasy cartographer. I would describe myself as I've been drawing maps ever since I saw the Lord of the Rings map, or the Hobbit map, I guess, when I was like 14. So I fucking love maps. I draw a map all the time. I draw a map for everything. Map good. That's my experience with maps. I'm also like a fantasy writer, so map good.
Map good.
I also love maps, overworld maps in particular. I mean, hell, I love battle maps too. But
we're done with battle maps, Con.
I know. We're on
Don't talk about it anymore.
None of us actually. We all have like ambiguous feelings about battle maps, but we all love overworld maps.
Yeah, but I think that's I think that's because it's interesting to me because in a real world setting, we don't have a battle map for our day-to-day lives, right? I mean, we're just... I know.
Okay, sure.
Bear with me for a second, okay?
I accept your argument.
Sure, yeah. That's true.
We're just living in it. And so, like, the battle map is a poor substitute to kind of be like, okay, and now your characters are in this space. But with a fucking overworld map, that is a very real feeling because we've all experienced a globe or a fucking map of the land that we're traversing through or anything like that. I mean, I guess it's less so now that we're on like Google Maps and stuff.
Well, I mean, Google Maps is also
Google Maps is a map.
Yeah.
It's also that.
It is.
Or a Pokemon Go map, so you know what part of the city you're in.
But like, that's why an overworld map is a little more, I think, appealing. Oh, broadly speaking.
Actually, I've loved maps since atlases when I was like a child.
Yeah.
So I love map.
Yeah, maps are great.
I can't say something like as highbrow as atlases, but I used to love looking at like the video game
Oh my God, those are
maps.
also
good.
Like when they put them in magazines and stuff. Because I was around for magazines.
Yeah.
Way before
that's
the
how
internet.
old we are.
Magazine.
Magazines.
Well, and atlases.
Yeah, one of the like the first time I ever
Fucking
did
Encarta, like the Encarta
Yeah.
95 CDs and
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean you're hitting the right stuff. One of my earliest like we did a White Elephant Christmas thing in my public
A
school.
Yankee swap?
I've been on that
Yankee
safari.
swap.
I've seen that beast.
White elephant?
No, that's the point.
This little public school in Indiana, we did one of those, and I remember fighting to get these big world maps that someone had brought in, and I was just ravenous to get my hands on those, and then bringing them home and trying to suss out all the great mysteries of the world through that thing. Fun for me. That was
I think you just
good.
touched on something that I like about maps is that you are able to use them as like a mystery creator in that you just like you have on one of your maps that I always loved was like the God's body, which is like this
What
thing
the hell's that?
Yeah, like none of us have ever been there except for like some of
No,
your
you guys
other
went
group.
there.
I didn't.
Oh.
I think it was your other group went there.
No,
our
you went
characters
there,
were
yeah.
but
We
I
went there.
think
Yeah.
it may have been during a period when Nick was like unavailable.
Maybe.
But
I was.
We went
I
in
was-
there and found like an embryo of giants.
Yeah, several.
man.
Oh, this is a
I
spoiler alert
remember
for the
that.
God's body for my
Yeah.
other group
Oh,
because the
sorry,
God's body is
folks.
in there.
Well, Steven's played that though.
Yeah, he knows what's in it.
Okay.
Steven's Iron
All
Trap.
right. Sorry.
Yeah, Steven plays along.
Okay.
But the
yeah.
thing that's great about it is that like the just having that on the map or whatever, you're like in your new group or whatever, they were like, I want to go there. That sounds fucking cool.
Yeah, one of the players was like, that's it.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that is allows you to really like pour a lot of low effort world building into your world of like you can be like, oh, I don't know what's in here, the unknown trees. There you go.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, what's the fuck was in there?
Yeah,
And then
the
you're like, oh,
Whispering
well, you
Wood.
have to go and find out.
Or Danny's name for the woods that I love so much that I stole it, the Snarlwood.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a really good name for it. And it's just like, oh, that's scary.
Yeah.
Let's go in there. Or
No
let's
one
not.
goes to the Snarlwood.
So I feel like overworld maps are so good, even if you don't use them for the mechanical traversing of a world or anything, just to be like, this is what is out there. What do you want? Where are you going? And this is how you can orient yourself throughout the world. Like you're over here now. If you want to spend the next 2 months traveling this way, then yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
But also, this is what's around you.
Yeah, I have drawn maps for all kinds of stuff. I think like hex maps are really different. Like I've drawn a hex map for my current campaign, and I don't know how I feel about it. I think I just kind of did it in a different way before I read more about like how to do kind of more hex crawl type of things. And so I'm not as into it as I have been for like my other overworld maps that I've made. Like the map that I made for the 13 Islands That was really fun to make.
Yeah.
Because I kind of I had it all to scale and I put it in the VTT and then you could drag your thing around and it's like, oh, this is in miles. And it's like, yes, I converted it to miles.
Yeah.
It's really fun and then I had like the floating island that was like in the sky or whatever. This was before
Nothing
Tears
bad
of the
ever
Kingdom.
happened there.
Nope, nothing bad ever happened there.
Yep.
You guys didn't destroy it and
I
kill
was just
everybody
having
underneath it.
coffee
You were just having
with a
coffee.
potential
that's true.
paramour.
Didn't work out.
No, it did not. I said potential.
But yeah, like those were fun to make just because like you can I just gave you guys the map. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. You guys have the map. Like,
Where you wanna
just-
go? Yeah.
Where do you want to go? Just go. Take your boat.
There's a really interesting interview with I think it's Ken Levine. I'm not sure. One of the designers on Fallout New Vegas has like a whole thing about map making in that he designs the map of Fallout New Vegas in that you can go straight through the desert and get to Las Vegas immediately. Yeah. The only problem is that in there is like all of the most horrible monsters and beasts that you can imagine. And so he made the map design so it would force the characters through all of the story elements that he wanted before you end up at Las Vegas. Except you can go the other way. It's just really hard and frustrating. So like it's a really interesting way you can use your map to like kind of help your players like get to the next place that they might want to go before they end up at God's Body or wherever.
Yeah, like a really I think I saw this recently, but yeah, kind of speaking to what you're saying is like you can kind of have the maps set up where you're like, okay, there's a place here that you can go to. And then here are all these different points and these different ways to get there. Like here's one landmark that you can hit on the way, or a different landmark or whatever.
Yeah, I was watching Map Crow, I believe is a YouTube
Map Crow is
writer.
So good.
Yeah, and one of his things, like if you have your starting location, you have like where your party wants to go, you should at least have 2 other locations in between to give them sort of like other destinations and choices. You want to travel through the unknown woods, or do you want to go through the God's Body? Yeah. To get to where you want to go. Like you can pick routes and stuff like that, but like it's still like definite. Here's your trail. Here's where you have to go. How do you want to get there? Here's what the world looks like.
I think overworld maps also provide a super cool opportunity for the GM, if they're crafty or want to put in this effort, is to show the effects of the characters upon the world by saying like, oh, this town you're just in is like, and you like rip off a sticker or whatever, and it's like burned down, or it's just like a crater or whatever.
Was legitimately so in a campaign that is on like a 2-year hiatus because I'm too busy in life. So yes, it's dead, but I don't want to say it's actually dead.
It's buried, Shade. Let it go.
No, it could still come back. We all talk about it sometimes.
It's falling through that bottomless pit of Daniels and getting resurrected at the bottom.
Anyway, I had created a map that I drew out by hand originally, and then I added in some like Roll20 elements back in 2016 or something, and then I did an update for Incarnates, and essentially there was an artificer that created fucking Google Maps, but with magic. So I was actively updating things on this map. Like there's a city that got burned down, so it is now just a bunch of burnt trees. It was a wood elf city, and things like that. And I love representing that stuff. It's so fun.
I think it's cool too, like you can, depending on how much of a map-centric game I guess you want to play, but like it would be a cool idea if there's, in like the Witcher sort of realm, how there's like the different armies that are kind of marching across and like, so different places have different occupiers and everything. You could even have like symbols that represent them that you kind of like push around the board or like roll randomly, so to see like where their warpath goes and like what parts of the map are being affected.
There's so many in between maps now that I'm thinking about too, because I ran something for Daniel the other night and Steven and Sean, and it was my new adventure, The Devil's Millhopper, for Cairn. And I drew a forest map for it, and it's sort of like a point crawl map. Yeah. So it's slightly different than like a big overworld map. And then I'm thinking too of the war game map that I made for the last episode of Argot, which was like a big hex map, but the scale was like on the city scale. Right. And so like those types of maps can also be very like it's like a different sort of scale, I guess. Like I feel like it's such a big, broad topic. But like I don't know, like a lot of the the different moving parts of it as well. I think that you were talking about, Nick, can be really interesting because like when you guys were playing like the little mini war game, it's like, yeah, you're like pushing your units around and stuff. And then when you have like a point crawl type of map, you can be very abstract.
Yeah.
You can just be kind of like, yeah, this is connected to this, so you just go there, and it takes you, X amount of time. It's kind of like, whatever amount of time.
Hand wave.
I have a quick question about your overworld maps because you mentioned something. You both have talked. All of you have. Y'all have mentioned this kind of.
We're all talking.
Things, yeah, we're all talking here. But things can kind of change with like political things and points of interest in particular. I am curious. Do any of you ever like create an in-game cartographer to represent that overworld map? So, like. For
like
example,
a character that is a cartographer?
That created the map that you have now presented to your players.
Oh, no. I've never done such a thing.
I love doing that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm surprised I haven't
I might
done that.
do it later.
So, and I completely forgotten that I did this.
So like the map makers like superstitions and feelings can be put into the
Correct.
map as well?
Yeah, because a map is an unreliable narrator as much as anything.
Yeah.
And so like I was looking through this map that I did, and I forgot that I had a brand new cartographer, different name from the one that I did on the original map. And there's like all this fucking lore that I had surrounding this, and how this cartographer came to do the map the way he did versus the way his master, because this is the apprentice of the original guy, and yeah, that can impact. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Like,
it would be
multiple versions of world maps.
Yeah, it's like there's like a fountain of restoration or a fountain of youth or whatever that's on a map, and everyone's like, okay, let's go there. And then it turns out that it's just like there's a legend that this guy thinks is real, that this happened, and so it's like a holy
Heard it
spot.
at a bar.
But it's not actually a real. Yeah, it's like a cool little thing you put in there.
There's a lot of maps I've made too that are. I like that idea because I've made maps that are definitely GM facing, where you're just like, oh yeah, I can't show them this. Like the point crawl forest map that I have that you guys are playing in. There's like a couple of locations that are kind of hidden, but I'm kind of also like, I wish I'd made a player version of this.
Yeah,
because then you can just be like, oh yeah, it's over here. It's whatever. Here you go.
For me, the big question when it comes to an overworld map, and going back to what you were saying about scale, is like, what scale do you guys do you just do, this is the sandbox, or do you say this is the part of the sandbox that we're focusing on, or do we go even more granular?
It depends on the setting, right?
Yeah, I did 4 maps, I think, based on like
it was
the
like
region.
Kingdom? Yeah, it was
in
just
Dark
like
Kingdom.
northeast, west, like
Yeah, it was like which because like in the game for backstory is like there was this creature called Grimdark who was a sort of demon insurrecting, and he had corrupted 4 nightmares.
generals.
Spelled like the medieval knight. And so that each one of them had a region. So like each map was, this is the region controlled by this nightmare.
Yeah.
So we did it that way, and it was very regional. Like, you guys want to go try to fight another nightmare? We could go to a different. It doesn't matter. We can go any direction that you want, because each one was connected by like the center corner piece of King's Fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's like going back to the time spent thing. Maps are great. I love making them too, but they are kind of time consuming, especially updating them. Yeah. And so like for me, it's, do you guys ever feel as though you are doing a disservice, or it's disappointing when you have such a cool overworld map and then you go and you're like, okay, we're theater of the minding this battle map, or like we're going into this city, there is no map for this kind of thing?
No, I've never felt bad about anything in my life.
I don't feel bad about anything.
I mean, because that's kind of back to my very stupid point earlier of like, you don't have a battle map for real life. Yeah. Like having a fucking map, having a map for, that represents the world, that's just a lovely little bit of paraphernalia for your game and for your characters. Mm-hmm. Having a map for, this is a 20 by 20 room that you're in, or something like that. Okay,
take it or leave it.
Yeah, too many little things can like come up and be improvised, and you can't have maps for everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, if you're gonna put in that work, it's big picture work, not detailed.
How do you guys feel about players getting their grubby mitts on your map? Like, do you feel like they should be able to like mark and like change things on the map? To,
well, yeah. So
I mean, they can make a copy of my map.
So what I was gonna say is, I wanted, so I made a hex crawl map for my current Salem game, and I was like, yeah, so you're kind of supposed to, build the map on your own because you're just a bunch of fucking people on the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have Google Maps, like, you're just maps are expensive. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You don't have a map. Why would you have a map? And they're just like, actually, I just gave them a shit ton of money. They could probably buy a map. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna. I was like, yeah, you could keep track of the overworld map, and it's how I dole out inspiration. I have like ways of doling out inspiration that are not RP based. We were talking about RP off mic earlier, and how I don't like RP based inspiration. But yeah, I was like, yeah, that's one way to get it. And like, man, they don't want to fucking map.
Yeah.
They don't want to fucking map it themselves.
Yeah.
And I think one problem that they were having with it was like, I don't know what the scale is.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. So I was having a hard time with that. And I just I gave them like a political map instead.
Yeah.
And then that was a little bit more abstract with, kind of like here's some population centers, and that's kind of it. And like
these are the things you should think of. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was literally just population centers, and it was also like, yeah, this map is 100 years out of date. And so like this place right now, it's not under control of the kingdom. It is, controlled by giants.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, where's the Godwadi Mountains? And it's like, it's kind of right here, and I just kind of point at it. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, draw it. if you actually wanted to know what it was like, draw it. I mean, I could make a version of it, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that, like where you're just like, how much information do you give them if like some of the things on the map are dungeons or treasures or stuff like that?
I mean, I think that, as far as an overworld map, it's not going to show every little thing. If we're on a VTT, a part of me is okay with them, marking something like putting an X so that they know. And I have certainly done that myself. Yeah. So that I know.
Yeah, there's a location in Waterdeep that we graffitied onto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Onto the map.
Absolutely. And I'm totally okay with that. Another part of me is kind of like, well,
I don't believe him.
But it would be no. It's just that sometimes it obscures, like, if I want to like have something that is a little cleaner for you to look at. Yeah. So, and that's all. But if we were in a in-person game and you've handed out maps, yeah, I 100% hope that someone is going to be writing on those maps.
Sure.
For their own stuff.
I kind of like the idea. I've never done it, and so it's just sort of bouncing around in my mind. But I sort of like the idea of like the GM, like you were saying, Franco, having a GM map that has all the secrets and everything. And then you giving them at the very start like a map of the world that has maybe like major population centers or something. And then everything else is blank. And then you can just say like, this is the world.
Fill it in.
And like if somebody is interested in being like the cartographer of the group or whatever, you can be like, yeah, you're going out to like you're given a quest and these are the directions, and then you can like write it out on the thing and circle and be like, this is where you're going. Yeah. And then like people can, mark and write down like found Hydra here or whatever.
Yeah. Fuck, I should do that.
Things like like Conca or World Anvil.
Conca.
I think are fantastic for this.
Conca.
There it is. But no, I think are fantastic for this because they actually do have interactive map elements where they're just really powerful wiki systems, and you can click and populate little pinpoints that will reference other things. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to an idea we had earlier, but
sure.
I was supposed to think like stickers are fun.
Yeah,
that sticker thing is really fun.
Like the idea of like just putting a sticker on. It's like, there's a wall that was built here or whatever.
I used to do that. I was designing a war game a long time ago. It never made it out, but we should play it sometime.
Yeah.
And every time I was like redrawing things, I would just get these stickers that I stole from my job at the time, like like kind of like mailer stickers or whatever, and I would just like paste it over and write over them. And it also makes me think of Risk Legacy, which is the only way to play Risk.
Yeah, I still have an untouched copy in my car.
But I want to play it. I want to play it. I mean, I know all the spoilers, but yeah, you just put like stickers over things. You blank out,
That's my favorite part of Gloomhaven. So putting the stickers on stuff.
Destroying the game.
Yeah. This is never going to be replayable. I spent $150 to do this once.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the last type of map we have on our little outline here, which is the dungeon map. This is kind of like an amalgamation of an overworld map and a battle map.
Yeah.
They are kind of like smashed together.
Yeah, we can say that.
Yeah. Sure. It's the hybrid. It's the fusion evolution.
Yeah, I feel like dungeon maps are like kind of the only thing that I have made that I'm like, I kind of need a dungeon map.
Oh, totally.
I keep forgetting to put dungeons in my game.
It all happens on the surface.
And the dragons don't exist.
Actually,
and the dragons are extinct.
What are we fucking playing, Daniel?
What are we playing, Daniel?
I don't.
Christ.
You're playing Guild
no dungeons, no dragons. We're not
even the Guild of Canaries
and drakes.
Yeah, what the hell? Who are we?
Have I failed you?
No.
You guys hate my game?
No.
But yeah, I think that for me, like dungeon maps, like there are some things like in Powered by the Apocalypse, like when you went into the mine shaft. I can't say too much because I haven't run this for Franco yet. But when you went into the mine shaft
and made all my terrible decisions.
Yeah, I made all your terrible decisions. Like that was kind of a dungeon, but there was no map for that because I was just like, this is how it works, right? And I was sort of theater of the minding it with you. But I feel like when there is a dungeon that is like a focal point and not just something that you are in and out of for some reason, you kind of need a map. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
I love a dungeon map. I just want to throw out resources. Dyson Logos makes great free maps. Like, holy shit, great maps. Great resource if you just need
Dyson Logos?
Dyson Logos. Dyson, like Dyson. The fan blade
like the
here.
fan Dyson.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Logos, yep. I think he's made maps for 5e, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. Maybe I'm making that up.
I didn't mention it earlier, but Sepeku, I think. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. It's CZEPEKU.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do really beautiful battle maps. If you're ever just looking for like a battle map you want to slap somewhere, fantastic. And one thing about pre-rendered battle maps that I meant to bring up earlier is because you mentioned your book, they can give you so much inspiration as a DM.
Yes, totally.
I
think that's a really great feature of battle maps where you're just like, oh, like what do I want them to do or what kind of terrain do I want them to be in? It's like, oh shit, like here's a big ass lava world, and that's how I came up with that lava place where you guys were in a volcano and then you almost got killed by that what was it? I don't know. It's a great monster. Neothylid.
The Neothylid. That's right.
Yeah, that was great.
Which you guys just punked when I ran it.
That's true. Yeah, we
I don't know what the level disparity was, but
we jumped onto the ledge or something like that.
Yeah,
that thing almost killed Jackie's character.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing would have fucking eaten that cat
monsters.
Anyway, dungeon maps. I will say dungeon maps are the ones that I do like the idea of players doing. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not a big fan of the players doing the overworld map too much just because...
Yeah, that's why I give them inspiration for it. But I don't give them inspiration for making a dungeon map because that helps you.
Yeah, that helps you.
That's not for me.
I think that's a lot of fun, though, and that's so much more attainable, too, because, like, okay, you enter a 10 by 10 room. Cool. I know how to draw a 10 by 10 room on a grid.
I've drawn before.
Yeah, I've got some graph paper in front of me. That's just kind of fun.
Shapes are hard, man.
They are.
I'm learning shapes on Procreate right now. It is a disaster.
Procreate's hard. It's like I feel like when I started trying to learn Procreate, I was just like, how do I draw again? Like I can do this with a pencil. This is like a totally different thing.
Yeah.
I feel like a child.
I find it interesting, though, that you guys would have players do the dungeon map because, at least in my experience...
we have them mapping it.
Right,
but we have your own map that you've drawn.
Yeah, because
or
like
downloaded or whatever.
For my sort of like experience playing, it has always been sort of a dungeon. I guess maybe I haven't done a dungeon except for on a virtual tabletop, like a proper dungeon.
Oh, I see.
I mean,
and so they kind of highlighted as they're exploring. You kind of like,
and so I've never had to like draw the map as I went through it.
You've ran a theater of the mind dungeon before and things like that.
But also like, it's kind of like they don't fucking do it.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I
like the idea
like, oh,
of
what
it.
if I can I go back there? It's like, yeah, fine. I guess you can go back or whatever. It's like, hey, this is a big loop. It's like, yeah, all my maps have loops in them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And that
makes it easy. Design fingerprint.
It's called Jaquazing. That isn't pioneered by Janelle Jaquays, who made Caverns of Thracia famously and worked on Quake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good shout outs today, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm very knowledgeable.
But that is also another thing is there's really not a lot of value in mapping out a dungeon unless it is something that they can get lost in.
Yeah.
Really. And
well, I've made like dungeons that are as small as 9 rooms, which like you can backtrack pretty easily.
Well, for me, dungeons like are on the cusp of like a strategic placement need at all times. Like at any point in a dungeon, something can happen where placement is important in and that's why I feel like they're so like kind of quintessential.
So,
but
that kind of gets into the battle map territory.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like an amalgamation of an
that's
overworld and
kind
a
of
battle.
in that element. I was just gonna say that in that kind of circumstance, what I would like to do, and I won't say I do this a lot. I'm more, especially on a VT2, I am just more prone to just fucking map out the entire thing and then, use fog of war or whatever. But if we were like in a dungeon that I want them to map out themselves because they could get lost, and then a battle is happening, I just have a blank grid to put down or a grid that looks vaguely like dark stone, and then we do the fight there. We carry on. That's all.
In a dungeon, I always go back to like JRPGs or like stuff like that. It's like, oh, you're walking around. You have the fight. The fight's happening in this map. I don't care where you're actually
That's exactly
standing.
what I mean.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I've done it that way too. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I do use like just a grid, like one of those like roll up grids, and then just throw some blocks down and stuff to map out a room. But you could also do a dungeon map like a point crawl. Yeah, I think that's like a thing that you can definitely do where you're just like, yeah, it's just like it's connected here by this or whatever, and like you don't have to be like a great artist or whatever to make any of these things. Maps are just diagrams. Yeah. You're just connecting things to other things. I think that's something that maybe people can get tripped up on sometimes, especially with like a lot of 5e GMs like and burnout, like just like, oh, fuck, now I have to like map a dungeon and create a map. It's like, yeah, just a bunch of bubbles and lines, like you're good. Just like, this is the guard room, this is this room or whatever. It's got this armor and it's got this monster and it's got this treasure, etc.
Yeah, that's so close to the 5-room dungeon, Franco.
Yeah, you can even do like it's a flow chart, I guess.
The 5-room dungeon is not a dungeon system. It's a way of like structuring like a plot or something like that. Yeah. I think that's I've used it. All of Argot, the 13 islands were all 5-room dungeons, and now I've switched to using like I've just been like designing dungeons.
Dungeon.
Yeah. Most of my dungeons are like 18 rooms. They're not that big.
Yeah, I think that's for me, kind of in conclusion, like maps are best for when they are additive to the game, like they are providing either clarity or a tactile sense of like immersive, like immersing your players a little bit more into whatever situation they're in. I feel like they become detracting when it's like when people are hyper focused on like the accuracy or whatever of a dungeon, like you said, like having the bubbles and the lines. I was like, that would change everything for me. Because I could literally just like on a paper go like, oh, there were 2 doors here, 2 bubbles on a bigger bubble. This is the one we took.
Yeah, a good dungeon map. Cult of the Lamb.
Yeah,
it's like you're in this little area, and then the dungeon is like you have go this way or that way, and then this happens or that happens, and you just progress till you get to the end of that level.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a game like that. I'm going to run a Cult of the Lamb game.
I think as a player, I feel like you guys don't really run dungeons. We did Dungeons of the Mad Mage. Yeah. And you don't really run dungeons, Daniel. But
I'm afraid not.
And I was once in a campaign which was really great, and it ended too soon, and I really enjoyed it. It did have a lot of puzzles, but it's fine. I can forgive it. Because the puzzles were fun. But yeah, that GM, he made not a ton, but he made a few really cool dungeons. Yeah. There was one that was like based on Name of the Rose, which is like set in an abbey, and it's like we're like, okay, we're crawling through the abbey and we have to like solve this mystery. But it was just like the location. It wasn't like really a dungeon, but it felt like a dungeon because we were like kind of going from point to point and like solving things. Because like dungeons don't have to just hate you. They can also be like just neutral places. Yeah, they could just be like places where you go. Yeah. Or there was this one where it was like an old castle and there was like I don't know. It was a great dungeon. Good dungeons, yeah. But yeah, in those we had to map all the time because it was like, okay, where are we? And he wasn't like, yeah, you go back, you go, yeah. He was not super handholdy about it because we were very into making the map ourselves. And we were like, shit, did we get this right? And he was like, yeah, it's close enough. Okay.
I love that. It's like, is this the right map? Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
It's the map that you have.
Yeah, it's what you drew.
Steven mapped in the dungeon that I was running, and he did a pretty good job. Yeah. Good job, Steven.
So, in conclusion, what are everyone's like thoughts of like thorns and roses for maps? Like, what are the things that you think that either you or a player can do to really make maps shine, and then what do you or a player do to really like fuck up a map?
I'm gonna answer your question by just giving my opinion.
Yeah. Thorns and roses. I'll be a thorn.
I would say what I'm going to do after this conversation, just keep making like very like fun, detailed, lore-driven overworld maps. And I won't ever need to make dungeon maps because I don't do dungeons. And my battle maps will be based on just in the moment, on the fly. I like theater of the mind battles. It's easier, and you can skip the whole. I have 30 feet of movement. If you're close enough? Yeah. Let's not worry.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny, I will say one of your things to do this year is to make a dungeon with me. We have to make a dungeon.
We started. We got to keep going.
We just got to keep going. It's a koi pond dungeon.
That's Saturday. That's off mic. We'll get to you and me.
We'll talk about it. I mean, I do want to do it. Map's good. Try a dungeon. Make a dungeon. Go for it.
Make a dungeon map.
Make a dungeon map. Make multiple entrances. Put loops in them. Put traps. Put empty rooms. Put monsters. And then combine those types of rooms together. You make them 9 rooms. It's great. Maps are fun. Overworld maps, but don't get in your head about it. Maps can just be diagrams. Yeah. I think people, I just want to ease people's minds. Like, you don't have to make everything by hand and like handcraft everything. And I think we've talked about this in like prep episodes too. And it's like, well, don't prep your plots. Just give them shit to do. And that's what dungeons are, and that's what overworld maps are. And battle maps aren't that, but like overworld maps and dungeon maps are just like, here's a little playpen, you stupid players, go,
you little piggies.
You stupid little piggies, go fuck it up, tear down all this stuff and get trapped and stuff.
Yeah. What about you, Shade?
Yeah, I mean, I think utilizing a battle map is a lot of fun when it is justified. So don't do it for every fucking battle. It's not worth it. Overworld maps are, you know what? Even if it's just a very like loose thing, do one. It's a lot of fun. It's something that's going to give your players a little more purchase into your world. And in terms of dungeons, take it or leave it on the mapping of a dungeon. I'll be honest. I think that being broad strokes on a dungeon, if you can get legitimately lost and trapped in a building, I think that you need some help. I'm sorry.
You just walk until you find an exit sign.
Just fucking, do the left hand on the wall trick. Just fucking keep following a wall until you come to a door sometime.
I can't tell you how many times I've been lost indoors. Sometimes some buildings are big, Shane.
Well, they're big, but you're gonna find an exit eventually.
Yeah, they're big, but they're not like dark and full of monsters.
Yeah, but I think at that point, it's a different story. That's sure. You don't a map. If it's dark, how are you gonna fucking read the map, Franco?
How are you gonna read anything? You need a torch.
Yeah,
get your torches. But I don't know. It's fine.
For me, I think that like maps are always the best used when they are used to like surprise and delight your characters.
Yeah.
Like, for me, anything that I can make that is holdable or tactile in a game is always good. Like when I did Candle Cove with you and Jackie Shade, I gave you the mission briefs.
That was a lot of fun.
Sort of like gave you things so that you guys could hold it, you could write on them, you could do it, you could see the map, you could fuck around with them. That is like my pretty much my only goal with all of these things is like, can I make my players buy into my game a little bit more with like by giving them this? And it was the same with in Lakewood when you guys went to Neverwood, the Ultra Bizarro world of Lakewood. Yeah. And like I gave you the map that was like the weird other version of Lakewood, and you guys were like, "Wow, this is cool!"
Yeah, being able to look at the differences, a lot of fun.
Yeah. So like that kind of stuff is always, I think, that should be your first goal, and then all of the other stuff around like specificity and everything, like Franco said, you can make just bubbles on a sheet and it services.
Exactly. Yeah, if it like stuff is GM side does not have to be nice or anything like that.
Yeah. And obviously do make a dungeon map once or twice. I was just trying to get
fun.
Franco's gut there.
Yeah, that made me furious.
I'm sorry.
The rage.
They are a lot of fun.
About?
Definitely do it. But also,
just because WotC can't write a dungeon doesn't mean I can't.
Writing. See, that's what I'm saying though. Writing a dungeon versus mapping out. a dungeon.
Sure.
Yeah. Write a dungeon.
Do you mean map as a player?
Either way, DM or
I think diagrams are fine.
Yeah, diagram is fine. I've written out dungeons that are just literally like, number one, this is the entry point, or an entry
that's how you write dungeons.
That's it. And that's all you got to do. Absolutely, you should make dungeons. I love making dungeons. They're a lot of fun.
They're great.
But maps, take it or leave it.
All right, and on that note, I just want to remind everyone that Tabletop is part of the Helios Network, a regular network of podcasts for regular podcast consumers. All of the podcasts are made by average Joes like us and other people on the network. Maybe you want to listen to something like, Master and Debaters, which is a group of folks who get, super passionate and argumentative about silly things, and it is like us. Yeah, exactly, like us. We're arguing about maps. So go check out Master and Debaters and every other show on the network. If you want to be a little bit more involved with Tabletop, you can go to our website at tabletoppod.com. You can see all of our socials there. You can also see our Discord channel and our Patreon links up in the upper right hand corner.
Did I leave our social security numbers there?
Did I say social security numbers?
No, you said
okay. I was like, oh my God. This heat is getting to me. So go do that and be part of our wonderful little gaming group. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
And this is my joke in the end credits.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.